My inheritance sparked a family fight over the auto shop. This has been eating away at me for months. I've read other stories like mine on here and never thought I'd be writing one of my own, but here, I am sitting at my desk in the back office of the shop. I basically built from the ground up, wondering if I'm the villain for not handing over half of it to someone who never cared about it until it became valuable. I, 33F, have been running my family's auto repair shop since I was 22. My dad opened it in the early 1990s, a 2-bay garage at the edge of a rural town. No sign out front, just a mailbox with our last name and the faint smell of oil and old rubber in the air. What we lacked in polish, we made up for in loyalty. Our customers were farmers, mechanics, delivery drivers, and people who needed their vehicles to keep their lives running. No frills, no gimmicks. Just honest work done right. My dad taught me everything. I was the tomboy daughter, always at his side with a socket wrench in hand. I started changing oil at 12, replacing brake pads by 16, while other kids were going to summer camps or dance recitals. I was handing my dad tools and crawling under cars. I fell in love with the process. The way a busted truck could roll in clunking and smoking and leave running like new. The way people trusted us. By 21, I was a certified tech. By 22, I was working full-time at the shop and slowly, patiently modernizing it. We added lifts, switched to digital diagnostic systems, created a simple but slick website, started using a booking app, and kept track of recurring customers through a CRM I paid for out of pocket. I restructured how we handled vendor accounts. I even started a social media page that got us a decent following. I was proud of how we transformed it from a greasy back road garage into a well-run, highly rated, independently owned repair shop. My dad was proud too. He even joked once while we were closing up, "If I ever drop dead, just promise you won't let your brother turn this place into a juice bar." I laughed at the time. He always had a way of hiding seriousness behind a joke. I should have known he meant it more than I realized. Chris and I were never particularly close. Not hostile, just different people living in very different worlds. He got a business degree, moved to a city 3 hours away, and started working in corporate marketing. He wears loafers and talks about brand synergy. He once told me at Thanksgiving that he thought I should franchise the vibe. I had no clue what that even meant. The last time he set foot in the shop before all this, Obama was still president. He always said the work was dirty and beneath his skill set. He made jokes about mechanics being replaceable. I didn't take it personally. Not everyone wants to spend their life elbow deep in engine grease. But I never thought he'd come for the shop either. Not when he showed zero interest in it for more than a decade. Then Dad died, a sudden heart attack. No warning, no time to prepare. One day he was talking about replacing the brake lathe, and the next he was gone. I didn't even get to say goodbye. The grief hit like a freight train. I could barely think, let alone run a business. But I didn't have time to fall apart. I had payroll to manage, cars to finish, vendors calling. I took 3 days off and came right back to work. Because I had to. Because if I didn't, the shop would suffer, and I knew Dad would have hated that. We eventually opened Dad's will. And this is where the problem began. It was simple. Too simple. A basic template drafted years ago. Everything is to be split evenly between my 2 children. There was no mention of the shop. No LLC structure. No operating agreement. Nothing specific beyond a sticky note taped inside his gun safe that read, "The shop belongs to Maddie. Don't let Chris touch it. He doesn't even know where the oil filter is." I laughed. I cried. I held the note in my hand like it could somehow shield me from what was coming. But legally it meant nothing. Thankfully, Dad had transferred the property deed to me in 2022, just in case something happened. So the land and building are fully mine. But the business itself, the name, tools, client listed, and the branding was still technically part of the estate because we never formally restructured it. We trusted each other. We just never expected this. That's when Chris swooped in. He had the shop professionally valued at $850,000. He never mentioned it beforehand. Never called. Then had his lawyer send over a letter demanding $425,000 of his half of the estate value tied to the business, or else he'd sue to liquidate it. No warning, no conversation, just a legal threat in my inbox. The same week, I was trying to pick a headstone for our father. I was shocked. I offered him $100K just to settle and move on. Not because I thought he deserved it, but because I didn't want to fight. He said it was a slap in the face. I've run this shop practically alone for a decade. I invested over $75K of my own money into upgrades and tools. I work 60-hour weeks. My last boyfriend left me because I cared more about engines than people. Maybe he wasn't wrong, but I care because this shop is mine. It's my purpose, my legacy. It's the one thing that's been steady in a life full of unpredictable losses. My aunt told me to just sell it and move on. My mom, divorced from dad, said she was not getting involved. Friends were split. Some said to give Chris the money and be done. Others said let him try. So I lawyered up. I hired both a probate attorney and a small business attorney. We combed through everything. Here's what we found. The building is 100% mine. Title transferred in 2022. All payroll, vendor accounts, and branding are under my business ID. I'd filed taxes as sole proprietor for the last 4 years. I unofficially changed the name to Maddie's Garage last year. My receipts show I purchased new lifts and computers tools, all under my name. Chris hadn't touched this place in over a decade. Not a dime. Not a second of labor. Not even a Christmas card for the guys on my team. He showed up once during this process, strutting around like an investor, touring a startup, taking pictures, peeking into tool drawers, trying to look like he belonged in a place he never helped build. I told him to leave. He smirked and said, "You wouldn't even have a wrench to hold," if I hadn't held off suing you right after Dad died. I told him to get out. At the preliminary hearing, the judge was refreshingly sharp. My lawyer laid out the timeline of my involvement, investments, and control of the business. Chris's lawyer argued that the value of the shop was built under Dad's name and reputation and that it should be liquidated or split evenly. But the judge wasn't buying it. It's not at all clear the son has any stake in a business he never worked in, visited, or supported in any way, they said. They granted us a temporary injunction. Chris cannot force a sale or interfere financially until the estate is sorted. Later that night, I got a text from Chris. "Sorry, kind of. I lost my job in March. I'm in debt." It was never really about the shop. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Chris filed an emergency motion to freeze my business bank account, claiming I was using estate resources without authorization. His lawyer tried to argue that since the name was still technically Dad's any income I earned in the last few months should be held in trust. It was complete BS and it got shut down fast. My accounts are under my EIN. The judge dismissed the motion and issued a warning about filing frivolous claims. But it rattled me again. That same week, one of my texts told me Chris came by again. During lunch, talking loudly in the parking lot about ownership changes and how he was going to flip the shop and retire early. In front of customers. I nearly lost it. I called my lawyer and said I was done negotiating. He either accepts a settlement from the other assets, Dad's cabin investment accounts, or we go full trial. 2 days later, Chris's lawyer caved. This fight wasn't just financial. It shattered the family. I haven't spoken to Chris since the settlement. My mom barely calls anymore. Aunt Linda visits less, probably tired of the tension. I've lost sleep, weight, and trust. Running the shop now feels different, like I'm guarding a fortress instead of doing what I love. Some days I wonder if it's worth it, but then a customer pulls up thanking me for fixing a farm truck that's been their lifeline. Or a kid comes in wide-eyed wanting to learn mechanics like I did. And I remember the look on his face when I figured out how to install a new lift by myself. I remember him standing in the doorway, watching me explain fuel injection to a teenager. I remember him saying, "You're going to be the best thing that ever happened to this place." We reached a settlement. Chris got $130,000 from the cabin and Dad's investment accounts. In exchange, he signed a full legal waiver, giving up any future claim to the business or property. It's done. Maddie's garage is 100% mine, legally, permanently. To make it happen, I took out a short-term loan and drained my emergency fund to help rebalance the estate for probate. I'll need time to rebuild, but it was worth every penny. Last night I locked up late, sat on the floor with a warm beer staring at the old shop lights humming above me. I cried for Dad, for everything I lost, for everything I kept. Chris and I aren't speaking. I don't know if we ever will again, but I sent him one last text. I hope you find something you care about as much as I care about this place, even if I'll never fully forgive you, because at the end of the day, this shop isn't just a business. It's my story, my sweat, my soul. That's all for now. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe for more.